The Shepnaz podcast begins now.
Welcome to the Shepnaz podcast. I'm Joe, and I'm your host today. And with me, I have Pastor Rob Paul and Rabbi Howard Silverman. And we have a special episode today in light of what's been going on in Israel and the conflict in the Gaza region. We want to talk about what's been going on, and many times the things that we're hearing in the media don't line up with what we know to be true. And so we wanted to get some insights from Rabbi Howard, because he's got, definitely a different perspective maybe than some other people do in the world, and we're eager to hear from him. So first of all, welcome, Rabbi.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you here today.
And we just want to, first of all, maybe get to know you a little bit. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're from, and that kind of thing.
Great. Thanks so much. Yes, I am a Jewish believer in Jesus, and I was raised in upstate New York, in Albany, New York, in a traditional Jewish family. From a wonderful Jewish family. In other words, I wasn't searching for anything, didn't have a bad experience, and needed to, leave my culture and people or anything like that. A very boring, normal upbringing. But when I was in college, I was challenged with the claims of Jesus. And of course, God knows how every person needs to hear it, right? So
Yep.
I heard it from a young lady that I was dating, and she said to me, a Jewish girl, and she said to me, "Howard, did you ever hear of Jewish people that believe in Jesus?" And I said, that is the most disgusting thing I ever heard in my entire life. Why would I want to give up my culture, my heritage, my tradition in order to worship a man or the God of the Gentiles, And so with all the boldness that she could muster up, she said, I'm a Jewish believer in Jesus. So I told her where the nearest behavioral health facility was, and went home, and then I thought about it and thought, why ruin a nice relationship over a religion, right?
Sure.
So to make a long story short, she shared the gospel with me, introduced me to other people. I have a lot of great little anecdotal stories that go with that. But finally, I was laying in bed one night, and I said, God, I can't stand this anymore. If Jesus is the Messiah, I need to know. I want to believe it. But if he's not, I don't want to have anything to do with this. And I just knew in that moment that I kind of like moved from point A to point B, and received the Lord into my life. And that was many years ago. That was in 1976. Wow. God has blessed me in wonderful ways. I've been in full-time ministry since 1980, serving in a variety of capacities. And for the last 30 plus years, I have been the spiritual leader, the rabbi, at Beth Messiah Congregation, not too far away from here, just up the street on Morse Road, right near Hamilton. And we are a Messianic Jewish congregation. That means we are a congregation of Jewish and non-Jewish people who believe that Jesus is the Messiah, and we worship in a Jewish cultural way. Okay. So therefore, like our services would be on Shabbat, we would say, on Saturday. And we follow somewhat of a traditional form of service, a Jewish service. But clearly, we sing worship songs, and our prayer and message all are tailored as Messiah followers, as believers.
Sure.
And that's kind of who we are.
Wonderful. Now, you said that you're in the church, Beth Messiah, correct?
Beth Messiah Congregation.
Okay.
Yes.
And there you've got believers that are both Jewish by tradition and non-Jewish by tradition. And we come to this point in our culture right now where, for whatever reason, we see some lines being drawn. And we have seen just recently on October 7th, this unprovoked attack. And where we have these militant terrorists that are attacking Israel, and now Israel is faced with the necessity to respond. And in the process of doing that, we're seeing people around the world reacting in a lot of different ways, some of which is kind of scary. I guess to give us some context, if you could, if you would speak a little bit to what is the struggle in the Middle East to begin with? What is the struggle between the Jews and the other surrounding countries, and how did this all come about to this time?
Great. That's very important. I really appreciate that question. So a little bit of a historical perspective. So, of course, we know that Israel is the Holy Land, right? The land of the Jewish people in the Bible, right? And we know that there was an exile, two exiles in a way. We know the Babylonian exile from our Bible study and Bible history. And we know the Jewish people came back. And then we know that after the time of Jesus, after the resurrection and so on, and around the year 70 A.D., the Jewish people were exiled again from the land. Okay, and scattered abroad. Yet there was always a remnant of people in the land. It was never absent of Jewish people. But I would say that perhaps maybe in the Middle Ages, you had enclaves of Jewish people, Jewish communities in the land. And this continued all the way up through the Ottoman Empire. You got to know a little bit about world history here, right? And so by the time you get to the 1800s, there were enclaves of Jewish people. They weren't. It was not a country, but settlements of Jews in the land. And then around the time of the turn of the 20th century, in Europe, there were a series of what are called pogroms, which were national anti-Jewish movements where Jews would be pillaged, just like you see in Fiddler on the Roof, if you've ever seen the movie. You know, what the Cossacks came and did in their little village. That happened all over Europe. And so there was a movement called Zionism that believed that the only solution is for us to go back to Israel and to have our ancient homeland, right? So Jewish people began returning, and additional settlements and so on. So to make a long story a little shorter.
Well, you're doing pretty good since you're covering a couple thousand years.
We move up to the end of World War I. Okay. By the end of World War I, now the British are in control of what was called Palestine. Okay. Now the whole land was called Palestine. Everybody that lived there were called Palestinians. Jews and Arabs were both called Palestinians because they lived in this land called Palestine. Okay, and so the British actually issued a paper called the Balfour Declaration that said that the Jewish people, need a homeland here, and that the goal should be this homeland. So years go by, and there were ups and downs, and so on and so forth. And there were issues between the Arabs and the Jews in the land, local issues and skirmishes and things of that nature. And so you had this issue between all of the people who were living in the land. So the British ultimately decided that they can't solve this, and so they came to the newly formed United Nations. At the end of after World War II, right? And basically said, we are leaving. We're leaving the area, and you can solve the problem of the Arabs and the Jews in this land. Wow. Okay? And so they came up with there was a solution in 1947. It was called the Partition Plan. The Partition Plan. The Partition Plan was a portion, and a pretty small portion would be called Israel, and the rest of it would be Palestine. Okay? Okay, the Jews accepted this, said, yes, let's do it. The Arabs did not want a Jewish state in the land. And so they said no.
They didn't want any.
They did not want any Jews in the land. Okay? That's very important to remember in this whole story.
Sure.
Okay? And so with the British left on May 14th, 1948. Okay? That same day, Israel declared itself that in that land, that what had been Israel's portion of that partition plan, forget about what everybody else is doing. We're establishing a state. It's called the State of Israel. Okay?
We're a country today.
Right. We're a country today. Well, within hours, every single surrounding nation attacked this Israel that had no standing army, by the way. You know?
Yeah.
And miraculously, there's no other way to explain it. Miraculously, they won the war, their war of independence. Okay, so from 1948 to 1967, you had Israel in this land, and the what is called today the Gaza Strip. That was part of Egypt. It was part of Egypt, and what's called the West Bank, right, was part of Jordan. Okay, so there was no like land of Palestine, right? It was Egypt and Jordan. In maybe you've heard of it, the 6 Day War,
sure,
1967. Yep. Again, every nation around Israel, entered into conflict with Israel. In 6 days, Israel won this war. Again, may I suggest? From the heavenly point of view, right, that this was a miracle. In 6 days, defeated all of those armies and gained these two territories, the Gaza Strip and what became known as the West Bank. Okay, Egypt never asked for the Gaza Strip back, interestingly enough, and Jordan never asked for the West Bank back. Okay, and so now Israel has these territories, and frankly, I don't think Israel has ever figured out exactly what to do exactly with them. One thing I can tell you is that Israel has always desired to just live in peace with these neighbors, whether it be an independent state, a territory, whatever it is. Live in peace.
And that's certainly not the narrative that you hear.
Right. And
that's for sure.
So what brings us to now is that the leadership of these people has never been, has never been to let's figure out a way of peace. It's always been let's figure out a way to send the Israelis into the Mediterranean Sea. That has always been the agenda. That was Yasser Arafat's agenda, if you remember him.
Sure, I do.
And that is Hamas's agenda. I'm not so sure anymore about the Palestinian Authority, but I can tell you that Hamas, in their constitution, is not only to destroy the land of Israel, but Jewish people everywhere.
Yeah.
And so that brings us to today. So you have people living in a situation that is very uncomfortable in the Gaza Strip. And I would suggest that the main reason, everything is complicated, right? The main reason is because the leadership in the Gaza Strip doesn't give the people living there, all that they need and require, because their main objective is to destroy Israel. And so by going in, should I keep going or do you want to jump in with a question?
I was going to ask you a question.
Please.
Because some of the things that you're rattling off, I know these are like almost buzzwords that we hear these days. And I was just wondering if you would speak to a moment for say, for example, the different groups that are in this discussion. We hear about Hezbollah. We hear about Hamas.
Okay.
We hear about the Palestinians. We hear about the Israelis.
Okay.
And we have at least those 4 people groups or sects or organizations.
Okay.
And when you speak of the Palestinian Authority, as opposed to when you mention the Hamas Constitution, like how do those different entities and these groups and these sects, how do they play together or not?
Okay.
And what are they, if you could?
Yep, thank you. So the Israelis are the Jewish people in Israel, right? Mm-hmm. The Palestinians are the people who live in these territories, in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, okay? The Palestinian Authority is the ruling body of the West Bank, okay? They are it used to be called the Palestine Liberation Organization,
Yep.
right?
The PLO.
PLO,
Yes.
Remember that.
right, okay? And so now they're called the Palestinian Authority, and they are the ruling body in the West Bank. They are more of a secular ruling body, not so much an Islamic, religious ruling body. They're Islamic, but they're kind of a secular ruling body. Okay, and they have somewhat of a relationship with Israel. You know, it's a little tenuous, but they're trying to make life better. You know, okay. Hamas is the ruling body in the Gaza Strip. Okay, the Gaza Strip is a little strip of land. Okay, that is located south of Tel Aviv. Okay, so just like in the Bible, you know, the Philistine cities, right? Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Jaffa. Okay, so Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Jaffa are in Israel, are part of the state of Israel. The strip called the Gaza Strip is like Gaza. You know, and then south of the Gaza Strip is called the Sinai Desert, and that's Egypt. That's all part of Egypt. Okay, and so Hamas came into being in the 1980s as kind of like an Islamic militant organization bent on the destruction of the Jewish people. You know, for the purpose of a land of Palestine. Okay. And so Hamas and the Palestinian Authority don't get along. They kind of, you know, the big picture, they're for the Palestinian people and so on. Okay, so you have that. Hezbollah is located in Lebanon. They are an arm of the country of Iran. Okay, and so we could say that Lebanon has just been co-opted.
Right.
You know, kind of like by Iran and this another militant organization, Hezbollah, very powerful, by the way, more powerful than Hamas is Hezbollah, and so when you hear about the northern border of Israel and Hezbollah, they're in Lebanon. Okay. Now there's another group that is in the news today called Islamic Jihad, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They are another militant group that is also located in Gaza. That they have some differences with Hamas. They're kind of competing militant groups, but evidently they kind of work together in events such as this. And so you have these Islamic militant groups. You have the Palestinian Authority, a secular ruling authority, and then you have Israel.
So it's the enemy, my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, right, kind of.
As long as everybody's against Israel, we may differ on other things, but we can all agree on that.
Yeah, so Israel is the unifying factor of everybody around them.
Wow.
Right. And so this event that took place on October the 7th was a way for Hamas, you know, not only Hamas, but everybody that kind of understands Israel knew exactly how this was going to play out. That Hamas created a situation that the Jewish people have not seen since the end of World War II. Okay? And I'm sure your your listeners and viewers have seen horrific photos and heard the stories of the hostages, men, women, and children, and the terrible brutality that surprised everybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So to Jewish people and to Israeli people, there's a phrase. It's called "never again." Like, never again is this going to happen to us. This kind of brutality going to happen to us. And so here it comes. And so to Israel, which is a tiny country, I'm not sure exactly what the ratio of the amount of people that died to the population of the country versus the United States at 9/11. Right? But it's like 10 times.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. And everybody knows somebody that either got killed, was slaughtered, or is held hostage, and who knows what's going to happen to them. And so the entire country of Israel is mobilized, and the way they've operated with these groups has always been like containment. We're going to settle it down. We're going to send them back a few years. But now it's like enough is enough. We can't live this way. Israel is a sovereign nation. You can't have people coming into your borders and simply murdering people. And we would say, from our perspective, there's somewhat of a double standard that if that happened here, for sure, we would unleash tremendous weaponry on whoever it was, which we did, by the way.
Right, we have.
Right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, we felt very justified. We're a sovereign nation. And so we began bombing Afghanistan and Iraq, right? And so when Israel does it, Israel now is the culprit, and is overreacting or indiscriminately killing people. And I can tell you that from the Israeli point of view, in the soul of Israel, when innocent people die, it's absolutely gut-wrenching to Israel.
We're going to leave it there for today's episode, but we encourage you to come back tomorrow for the conclusion of our conversation with Rabbi Silverman. We hope that this commitment to prayer will be your next step toward Jesus. If you would like to contact us, email podcast@shepnaz.org. We also encourage you to follow Shepherd on social media, our website, and mobile app. During yesterday's services, you heard Pastor Rob give a challenge to pray for the Israeli hostages. You can find an updated list of these names through the Fellowship of Israel-Related Ministries. The web address is firmisrael.org/praybyname. We'll leave you today with a challenge from that organization.
As we heard all the news coming out of Israel this last week, it could be easy to ask God, where are you? Where were you? Over 1,000 people were killed ruthlessly in the streets, men, women, children, elderly. And this is not a new question. In fact, the prophet Isaiah asked this question. He says in Isaiah 49 that Zion says, am I forsaken? Am I forgotten by God? And he then goes on to say, can a woman forget her nursing child? Can she have not compassion on the son of her womb? He says, surely even these may forget, but I will not forget you. Israel, I've inscribed you on the palms of my hand. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. And so as we have so many Christians around the world that are praying for Israel right now, we want to challenge you, the global church, to pray for Israel by name. Just as the names of the children of Israel are inscribed on the palms of God's hands, we want to inscribe the names of these over 100 hostages on our hands. There's over 100 hostages right now in Gaza, children, women, men, and elderly, and we want to see God free the captive, release the prison chains, and rescue those that are currently in oppression. They're facing the darkest season of their lives. And so we're asking, would you write the name of one of these hostages on the palm of your hand as a reminder to ourselves that they are not forgotten, that we remember their name and they are remembered by God. They're inscribed on the palm of God's hand. We've already heard one miracle of a woman that's escaped and and was able to return back to Israel. We're believing God for miraculous rescue, for a miraculous saving of lives. And we're going to do that by praying for Israel by name. So I want to challenge you. I want to challenge your church. I want to challenge your faith community. Would you write the name of one of the hostages on your hand using a black marker and post a photo or a video of you praying for that individual? And would you use it as a reminder throughout the day? When you look down at your hand, we're praying, we're remembering them because they are known by God, they're remembered by God, and they are not forgotten. We want to see a movement of 1 million Christians around the world that are praying for Israel by name. Will you join us?
This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.